Wise men say only fools rush in. Are you familiar with the song? I agree with the lyricist. Foolish people rush into things with little thought of the consequences just so they can get what they want immediately. They will eventually learn that impatience leads to compromises that lead to even more delays. I'm speaking from experience, by the way. Let's not be fools. Trusting God's promises, ways, and timing is the fastest way that leads to our breakthroughs. Take Abraham, for example. In Genesis chapter 15, in Abraham's old age, God promised him a son, an heir. In verse 4, God says, "This man," referring to Abraham's servant, "will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir." Abraham received the promise with so much faith, so much excitement at that time. This has been his heart's desire for the longest time. Abraham waited. Years passed, he waited some more, and then some more. Here's the thing about us humans. When we get so excited about something good, the tendency is to get impatient, right? Abraham's faith eventually turned into doubt. He probably started thinking, did God forget about the promise? Will he still make this happen? How long must I wait? Because of impatience, Abraham took matters into his own hands. Instead of trusting God's promises, ways, and timing, he compromised. He slept with his servant in order to have a son. This thoughtless act resulted to numerous complications. Tension between Abraham and his wife, competition between his wife and his servant, the neglect of his son, and even religious tension that we experience up to this very day. How many times have we fallen into the same trap that Abraham did? Compromising to get a high grade, a promotion, to close a sale, a business, or even a relationship that we were not yet ready for. Then when things get crazy, we ask, "Lord, why did you allow all of this to happen?" We pretty much did it on our own. If you were God, how would you respond? Personally, I would probably take my promises back because of people's faithlessness. I thank God that we are not God. He is always patient with us, even in our impatience. And He is always faithful to His promises, even in our faithlessness. Abraham experienced this firsthand. After all his mishaps, God reiterated the promise in Genesis chapter 17, verse 19, where He says, "Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him." Abraham laughed, and his wife Sarah laughed after hearing this too, because they thought, how can senior citizens have a child? The doubts eventually turned to praise when God finally fulfilled the promise in His perfect time. God was, still is, and will continue to be faithful for all of eternity. One of my favorite verses, Joshua 21:45 says, "Not one word of all the good promises that the Lord had made to the house of Israel had failed. All came to pass." He wants to assure us today, when He says something, we can consider it done. Are you waiting for a promise to be fulfilled? You've probably been anticipating it for months, for years, or for some even decades. Be wise. Don't rush. Trust in God's promises and God's ways and God's timing. Patiently wait in faith. This is the fastest way to receive our breakthroughs. And more importantly, the best way to experience the even greater blessing of knowing God more. And if, like Abraham, you've compromised in the past, God wants to remind you today, His promises and His plans for your life have not been canceled out. They will prevail. Start trusting in Him today and see all of His wonderful purposes for your life come into completion. All of that for His glory. I hope you enjoyed our short devotion today. If you like what you heard, go ahead and share it. Have a great day.